The Indianapolis Colts play the Chicago Bears tomorrow night, 7 p.m. That joint practices against the Bears this week. All that, we'll talk about that with Bob Kravitz today. Hey, and Bob, just quickly, I know you were down there. I saw the reaction when you were in camp, and Shane Steichen announced that Anthony Richardson was going to be the full-time starter. Love that, and just
Let
interested.
me see if I can do it again.
Yeah, yeah, that was the ultimate double take.
That was a total double take.
I guess by that reaction, you were not expecting to hear that at that moment.
Well, not that soon, Zach. Look, I think we all expected that Anthony was going to be the starter. Was it a fair fight? Probably not, but it wasn't supposed to be. When you're drafted 4th overall, you're supposed to be the starting quarterback, even in your rookie year. But I was surprised that he made the decision so quickly, and I applaud him for that. I think it gives Anthony a chance to settle in, be comfortable, and work with the ones every single day. And I'll tell you what, it's something that people should not overlook. Gardner Minshew is the ultimate teammate. He's only 27 years old. He still thinks he can be a starter in this league. He might be right, but he understands that Anthony Richardson really is the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear he knows just by his comments that he said, I believe same day, that he understands the assignment. He knows what he's there to do, and good for him, man. I mean, what an ultimate pro. And Bob, a lot of times you see guys like Gardner Minshew. That's what helps these guys stick around the NFL for a very long time. Just that demeanor and that approach and that attitude of a Gardner Minshew. Pretty special, huh?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, look, it's not a bad deal being a backup quarterback and making millions of dollars. If I could get that job, I think I would jump on it. But at the same time, look, this guy's a pro. He's competitive. He wants to start somewhere. Lord only knows he's torn up the Colts. He's looked like Joe Montana against the Colts many times in the past couple of years. And I really think that if you committed to Gardner Minshew, you could win 6 to 8 games. I really believe that, which is significantly more than you're going to win with Anthony Richardson. But that wins and losses are not what this season is about. I think all Colts fans understand that. Peyton, who played in 44 or 45 college games, went 3-13 his first year. Okay, this kid played 13 college games. He completed just 54.8% of his passes.
Yeah.
So we can't expect much in terms of wins and losses, especially with the whole Jonathan Taylor mess. Zach Moss is out for a couple more weeks. We don't know what we're looking at with Shaquille Leonard. The secondary is a bit of a mess. So I think, this was not going to be a terribly good team, regardless of who started.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And, Bob, I was thinking about this before we came on the podcast, and just really wanted to ask you, what the hell's going on with this offensive line? I mean, I know the initial starters didn't look that bad, but when you're a guy, and as Chris Ballard has preached, competition and building the trenches, it just feels like, to me, and as an outsider, he's neglected to really kind of back his words in that regard. Just your thoughts, curious of those.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, they stayed with the starting 5 from last year, and I agree with 4 of the 5. I think Bernhard Raimann came along in the second half of last year, but Will Fries, not impressed, and certainly the second string offensive line, they are really lacking in depth, and I'm a little surprised, quite frankly, that Chris Ballard hasn't done more to bolster that offensive line, and I hope he does something here in the next couple of weeks, and maybe it'll take a bad showing against the Bears to reveal to Ballard that he needs to do something.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the Bears, Bob, what's your stance on the joint practices? Do you like them? Do you not like them? I know there are a lot of fans that say, well, there's some benefits to it, but then you're always going to deal with these fights and the injuries and all of that good stuff. I call it football, but just what say you?
Look, I've talked with several players and Shane Steichen, and they will all tell you that they get more out of these practices, these shared practices, than they do a preseason game. So, I think the reason that teams have gone this route is because you only have 3 preseason games now. These shared practices are basically the fourth preseason game. Of course, the Colts go out to Philadelphia next week and have a couple of practices. But you ask them, they will tell you that regardless of the skirmishes and what have you, they get more out of these than they do preseason games.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. Injuries have been a thing that is kind of this week has taken on for the Indianapolis Colts. That being said, has there been anybody when you've been down there? I know you've been kind of in and out,
Right.
that you have liked seeing down there that you thought, you know what, these are some younger guys. Maybe I didn't expect, necessarily see this person, show out in practice. Has there been anybody that stood out to you at all?
Well, the cornerback Baker,
yeah, Daryl Baker Jr.
Daryl Baker Jr. has been very good, and I'll tell you who's really impressed me is Kylan Granson. Now, I don't know if he can block. He showed no inclination to do so last year, but as a pass catcher, I've been very impressed with him. Those are the 2 guys who've really stood out to me. And really Anthony's been very good.
Yeah,
he really has. He does have some of those passes where you think, how did he miss that guy?
Yeah.
But he makes plays that we haven't seen around here since certain number 12 roamed the premises.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I'll go back to what I said earlier this week about Kylan Granson. Maybe his best ability is his availability. Just being there. I mean, you've got all of these tight ends with all of this talent upside, but hell, they can't stay healthy. They can't get on the football field, and he's taking full advantage of it, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, I'd like to see more of Ogletree. You pretty much know what you have with the starting tight end from Mo Alley Cox.
Yeah.
You know what you got with him. I mean, they've got 8 guys who are okay. I mean, they've got a very filled or overfilled room there with the tight ends. But Kylan Granson has definitely impressed me more than anybody else so far.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Ashton Dulin got hurt this week.
Yeah,
that's rough, huh? I mean, he's a dual threat. He's gonna give you 2 for 1. If you have him on your football team, that was tough to see, huh, Bob?
It really was. It's such a shame because he's a really nice kid. I say kid because everybody's a kid to me. I'm 100 years old. But he's great on special teams. Just great on special teams. As your 4th or 5th wide receiver, he's passable. Not a great player, but as a special teamer, he was very, very good. And it's definitely a loss for the Indianapolis Colts to lose Ashton Dulin.
Yeah, I mean, it's the big shoes to fill. I don't know who's going to be the one to do that. Maybe Grant Stewart is a kind of a special teams ace. We'll see, guys, as far as that goes. Be remiss without talking about Jonathan Taylor. Now, let's just set the personal matter to the side. That's a whole separate issue. Is there any resolution to this at all that you can see? I know you've wrote about it. Everyone's talked about it. We've talked about it. Is there an actual resolution to this?
If there was a resolution, I think we would have seen it by now.
Yeah.
I think if there was a resolution, they would have either traded him by now or they would have come to a contract agreement. Right now, both sides are intractable. I don't know what the next step is. My feeling is if he's serious about, making whatever it is, 12, 13, $14 million a year over the long term, they might as well just trade him. Get yourself a 2nd round and a 4th round. You're not going to get the kind of return that McCaffrey got, but with the 49ers and Carolina. But at this point, I think that relationship is doomed. And I hear people say, well, the agent has put all these crazy thoughts in Jonathan's head. Jonathan Taylor is one of the smartest guys you will ever meet. He could have gone to Harvard, Yale, what name, you name the Ivy League school. This is about Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor specifically hired a new agent to represent him, and he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any question about it. And ultimately, you got a guy on your football team that doesn't want to play there. And you mentioned it earlier, just get what you can get and potentially just move on. And because at this point, maybe this is a distraction that Shane Steichen, I know, does not want to have, as you
No.
guys have been there and asked him a question.
Why is he even at practice? That's my question. Now, he hasn't been in the last little while.
Yeah.
But I don't even know why you want him there. He's a guy that doesn't want to be there. And he's always wearing this scowl, which, if you know Jonathan, is really out of character for him. So I don't understand what they're doing. The Colts have made it very clear that they are intractable on this. They're not going to trade him, and they're not going to sign him. So what's that do? I mean, what you're spiting your nose to whatever the term is, with your face and your nose. It just, what purpose does it serve for the Colts to be hardliners about this? Go get what you can.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. Before we get off here, Bob, just wanted to circle back to Anthony Richardson. I mean, there's, you got to temper expectations when you have a rookie in there. There's going to be good and there's going to be bad. I've told people on this podcast, just hop on the roller coaster and you're going to be on it all year long. But that being said, you got to be a little bit impressed with at least his demeanor and his approach to, just being thrust into this situation at 21 years old. It seems like the lights aren't too big for him right now. Now, we'll find out more as the season goes on. But right now, saying all the right things, doing all the right things, and his teammates are kind of jumping on board with him, huh?
Yeah, I think they're very impressed by him, by his demeanor, by his desire to learn, his ability to learn the system. Rick Venturi had a good point. He said, when Peyton came in, he had to learn, a very complex passing offense. With this kid, he already has 50% of the offense because it's read option.
Yeah.
So he's already got that going for him. And I think they're going to concentrate in that area. I talked to Peyton this morning, as a matter of fact. And if you go on to bobkravitz.substack.com,
right there.
on Monday morning, I will have a piece with Peyton Manning talking about what this kid's going to be facing. And people have got to remember, and I know you know this, Peyton and the Colts were 3-13 that first year. Yeah. He threw a rookie record-setting 28 interceptions. And, he played, 44 or 45 games in college. This kid has played 13.
Yeah.
13. One full year of college football. So it's going to take a long time. It would not shock me if it took two years before he really started figuring it out.
Yeah, I would agree with you totally. But you can see the potential there. At least there's something there to build on. And that's exciting and that's encouraging. And I think really that's what the Colts Nation has been looking for so long, just something for the long-term future. We're not doing this revolving door with these old quarterbacks that is really ultimately going nowhere.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think they thought they found something in Carson Wentz, and obviously that didn't work out. But I do think that Colts fans are just thrilled that a new era has begun. Look, we don't know if this kid's going to be special or not. We have no idea. The early returns are pretty good. But I just think Colts fans got tired of seeing everybody else's cast-offs or guys who are 150 years old and couldn't move, like, Matt Ryan or Phillip Rivers. I think they're looking for something exciting and young and new. And I think they've got that in Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, There's no question about that. Well, that's right. I mean, tomorrow night, preseason game 2 against Chicago. We don't really know who's going to be out there on the field. I know Matt Eberflus has said most of his starters won't be. If you haven't had a chance, guys, like, rate, review, share, and subscribe. Join this No Horsing Around family as we approach 2.8 thousand viewers and subscribers, as well as head on over to bobkravitz.substack.com. He's really right. And I mean, he's on fire, guys. I mean, anybody who grew up in this area, reading, listening to Bob Kravitz, it's vintage Bob Kravitz for me. So I'm glad that this has happened for you, Bob, if I'm being honest with you, man.
Thank you. It's nice to write what you want, when you want, and how you want. Believe me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And guys, as always, until next time, go Colts.